Allison to introduce the project that we're going to be doing in the financial literacy chapter. Excuse me. And I'm going to go over some examples as well. So I'm just first going to show you what this document looks like. It's 14 pages long, so it's a little bit big. So we'll kind of go through the outline of what the document looks like, and then I will do the examples and then explain what you are required to do for the project. So this project is all about buying or leasing a car. So you're going to be choosing a car that you would like to purchase, something realistic, and then you're going to create a budget for that. And so let me just show you this document. So on the front page here are all the things that I'm going to be looking at when you hand this in. So there's about 6 pages of practice. Pages 2 to 8 are all practice examples, giving you a scenario, and then you calculate the cost or whatever. And then pages 9 through 14 are the actual projects where you're choosing your own car and then going through the steps of calculating all the different costs. So we're going to be looking at buying the actual vehicle, taking out a car loan, and then insurance, fuel consumption, maintenance for your car, and then a summary of all the costs at the end. So I'll be looking at all these pages and then giving you some feedback here on the front page when you hand that in. So like I said, there's some practice examples, and we'll go through these in a minute. So page 1 is about actually buying the vehicle. Same with page 2, so we see some examples here, so you'll be required to do these on your own. Then the second examples have to do with insurance. These are all real numbers, by the way, from British Columbia, so they're accurate and realistic for the project. So some insurance rates here, we'll go over this, some examples, 2 examples for you to do. And then fuel consumption, we looked up real numbers for a variety of different cars, and then used accurate prices for gas as of today. And so there's some examples like you see again here, another example. And then this is where you actually have to do the project starting on page 10. So I'll explain this more after I do the examples. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. And we're going to start with buying a vehicle. So we're still talking about tax. Tax is a little bit complicated when it comes to buying a car, and there's different ways that you are taxed depending on what type of car you buy, if it's luxury or not, and if it's used or not. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here. If you want, you can pause and read this on your own, or I'll continue watching the video and I'll read it with you. So you pay between 12 and 20% tax, depending on what type of vehicle you buy. Okay, so I'm just going to highlight some things as I read through here. If you're buying a new car from a dealer, you get charged 5% for GST, and then so that's the government sales tax that all Canadians have to pay. And then the provincial sales tax just for British Columbia is 7%, as long as you're spending less than $55,000. As the cost of the vehicle goes up, there's extra charges for a luxury tax. So for each $1,000 above $55,000, you have to pay an additional 1%, giving a maximum for $57,000. So if you're spending $57,000, you're doing a 10% total tax for that car. If you have a very, very luxurious vehicle between $125,000 and $150,000, then the PST is going to be 15% in addition to the GST. And then anything above $150,000, the PST is 20%. Okay. Probably in here, none of you will be buying a car that expensive, but you never know. If you're buying a used vehicle sold privately, PST is charged, but GST is not charged. You just pay 12%. As long as you're buying a used vehicle less than $125,000, and then if above that, you pay 15 or even 20. Okay, so let's just fill out this chart here. So less than 55,000, you're paying 5% GST plus 7% PST. This is for most 90% of cars. So the total would be 12%. For a used car less than 55, you'd also pay 12%. Then, as I said, it goes up by 1% each time. So you pay 5% for your GST and then 8% for PST if it's between 55 and 56. So it'd be 13%. And here it'd be 14%. And then 15%, 5% plus 10% PST. So anything between 57 and 125. So like, let's say you're buying a Tesla, you would spend, you'd pay 15% tax on that. Anything above 150,000, you're going to do 5% for your GST still, and then the article here says it's 15% sales tax, so you get taxed 20% overall, which is a lot. And then anything above 150, it would be 25%. Oops, sorry, I meant to put 20 here. Okay, for used vehicle, it's basically just 12% PST, no matter what, until you get to above 125,000, and then you're paying 15, and then above 150,000, you're paying 20. Okay, so let's do an example together, and then there's going to be two for you guys to pause and try. So let's say we want to buy a new car for $45,000. So we're buying a new car, which means we're going to be in this category of taxes here. We trade in our old car for $5,000, and the dealership offers a loan of 2% interest to be paid monthly over 4 years compounded monthly. What is the tax on the new car? So for $45,000, we're going to be in that first category, so it's only going to be 12%. So to calculate the actual tax in dollars, you would do 0.12. You need to convert it to a decimal and then multiply it by the cost of the car. Now, it actually doesn't matter about the trade-in yet. We're just looking at the new car. So 45,000 times 0.12 is $5,400, which is a lot of money just for taxes. So the total cost of the new car, so that's just the tax. Cost of the new car would be $45,000. That's the car, plus the tax, which is $5,400, leaving us with $50,400. Okay. What is the amount to be borrowed? So this is where we have to consider that we're trading in our old car for $5,000, so we're going to take that off the price. It's almost considered like a down payment for our car in a way. So the amount we're going to be borrowing is $50,400 minus the $5,000 trade-in, and you end up needing to pay $45,400. Now, most people don't have $45,000 just in cash ready to hand over to the dealership. So they need to take out a loan and pay that off slowly. So that's what we're going to be doing here. And here's the information for the loan. It's 2% interest, paid monthly, 4 years compounded monthly. So in lesson 7.4, we talked about regular payments, and we had a couple of equations for that, and we're going to be using one of those here. Because we know the present value of the car, the present value here is $45,400, we're going to be using the present value equation. So I'll just write that down to remind you of what that is. The present value equation is, and you can look this back up in your workbook if you need to, it's 1 minus 1 plus I, power of negative n, divided by I. So here, the I is going to be 2% divided by 12. Let's write down all the stuff we know. So our I is 0.02 divided by 12. The n is how many compounding periods we have. So that would be 48, 12 times 4, because it's 4 years. And we also know the present value is $45,400. That's the cost of the car right now. Okay, so let's plug those into the equation, and we're going to be finding the monthly payment, which is the regular payment stands for. That's what R stands for. Okay, so let's plug everything in here. So it'd be 45. We need to do a little bit of algebra. R times 1 minus 1 plus 0.02 divided by 12. That happens to be kind of a nasty decimal, so I'm just going to leave it as a fraction. Negative 48. That way it'll be much more accurate in my calculator. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is just evaluate this whole right-hand side here, this big ugly fraction. I'm going to do the numerator first and then type in the denominator second. So you'll see that on my calculator here. There we go. So I'll type this in just as it's written, 1 minus 1 plus 0.02 divided by 12. So if it's a fraction, just use the divided by. The power of negative 48, bracket. And let's see what I get. So that's just the numerator, and I'm going to divide that by 0.02 over 12. Use brackets, 0.02 divided by 12. Okay, so this whole thing here that I'm highlighting is equal to 46 point, and then all those decimals you see on the screen there. So I'm going to write that down. 45,400 equals R times 46.09330726. Now don't delete this from your calculator because we'll just use that button and we won't have to retype all those numbers again in a second. So now to calculate R, because it's being multiplied by 46.09330726, we'll just divide by that on either side of the equation. And that will isolate R on the right-hand side. So we get R equals, and so in my calculator, it looks like this. And I don't have to retype everything. I'm just going to utilize that answer button. 45,400 divided by that answer, $984.96. We round to 2 decimal places because it's money. So 984.96. So those are my regular payments for the car. There's not much space here, but you can just use this blank space. We're not going to be using this space for anything else. So, and I'll just write that again here, 984.96. Okay, what is the total payment over the 4 years? So if that's what we're paying every month, then you're going to be paying $984.96 times 48, because there's 48 payments we need to make in total, 48 months in the course of 4 years, 984.96. And you can just use the answer button again, and then times 48. So keep everything in your calculator, that way you can save a lot of time and not have to retype everything. Also, it saves you from making small errors by typing things wrong into the calculator. 01. Okay, so this is how much the car costs us in the end, $47,278.01. You'll see that this number is larger than the amount we actually borrowed. That's because we had to pay interest. So it's not for free borrowing this money and paying it slowly back over time. You do have to pay more in the end for the car, but some people don't have $45,000 in cash at the moment to buy the car, so they choose to make these payments instead. So the finance charge, it's talking about the interest. So we would just subtract what we actually paid from the cost of the car. Oops. 45,400, and we end up getting, and I can just do this right in my calculator again, being efficient, $1,878.01 is the cost of the financing for the car. Okay, so that's your example for a car purchase and then a loan and how much the payment would be. So you would use this calculation if you're determining like if you can afford the car or not. So then you would look at that payment and be like, okay, is this realistic? Can I actually afford spending $984.96 every month in addition to housing costs, food, whatever I have as well? Okay, so then what you guys have to do is you could pause here and try number 2 and number 3. They're very similar, but just slightly different situations compared to number 1. Okay, welcome back. We're going to now go over the insurance section. So again, you can read through this on your own if you prefer, or you can read along with me. When you're buying insurance, you're going to buy 2 different things. You're going to buy the basic insurance, and then typically most people also get some optional coverage as well, which just covers you a little bit more, gives you more coverage. And especially if you're, yeah, you definitely want to get optional coverage, because if you're in an accident and something happens, you want to have lots to cover you. Okay, so the average cost for basic insurance is $1,316, $1,316 as of today, but that could change when you actually buy a car. So everybody pays that. And then for the optional coverage, it depends on what type of vehicle you have and also what you want for your optional coverage. So your optional coverage here is shown in this table. And depending on your scenario and what car you choose to purchase, you'll be in one of these different categories here, depending on the cost of your car, right? And also how much you want to pay. So third-party liability is like if someone else is injured in an accident, it covers their medical costs and things like that. Collision deductible, so you'll have to pay if you get in an accident and you need to repair your car, you'll have to pay $200. And comprehensive is anything that's not an accident. So let's say someone does like damage to your car, like they break your window and steal something from your car, you'll have to pay $200 and then in order to get it fixed. So depending on what you choose for your deductibles here, these insurance costs will change. So a higher deductible, you'd actually pay less insurance. So it's kind of, you'll have to decide what risk you want to take there. And we just chose 3 options, the 3 most popular options according to a local insurance broker. But there are more options when you actually go and get your insurance. So this table here is what we're going to be using when we do our optional coverage in the next couple examples. Here it just explains what the collision, third party, and comprehensive coverage is. There's also Roadstar. That's $21, but you can only get Roadstar if you have been driving for 9 or more years without an at-fault accident. So you guys wouldn't have that yet, but if you start driving now, then you'll get it in 9 years. And so that covers rental vehicles, key rekeying, travel protection, like just a bunch of stuff. So it's a good deal to pay $21 and get all that stuff. Okay, so let's look at an example here. So I'll do this example with you, and then you can try one on your own. Okay, so find the total cost for insurance. License and registration for a car worth $26,000. So insurance is $2 million third-party liability, $200 deductible for collision, and $500 for comprehensive. They do have a Roadstar package, and they have a 20% discount for safe driving. So typically, if you've been a safe driver and you haven't gotten in an accident, you get some kind of discount on your insurance. So their discount will be 20%. And assume the license and registration is set at $36. Okay, so we're going to fill out all of this stuff. First, we have to figure out which group we're in this tree here. So it's $26,000 vehicle. So we are going to be in this row 7, and looking for the deductibles that match, we're going to be this one here, $1,055 for our optional coverage. And we're in group number 7. Let's keep that in our head here. Rate group 7. Okay, so license fee and plate registration, that was told in the question, $36. Basic coverage, so that's what everybody pays. That was highlighted in yellow here. So that's $1,316. So that's before all the optional stuff. Third-party liability. So here we did $2 million. Collision premium, we did $200 deductible. This is just given in the question. And for $500 for the comprehensive. So all of those options, if we look at the chart here, it was $1,055 for this cost of car, for this price of car. Roadstar Premium, they did want to purchase that, and that, remember, was $21. Only some drivers can get that, though. So the total with the discount, if you add all those numbers up, is, I have it on my answer key here, so I'm just going to write it. Oops, the lights just turned off. 1 second. There we go. Okay. So total with discount, if you add all those numbers up, is $2,420, without the discount, sorry, $28 So if you had no discount for safe driving, that's what you would pay. But we do have a safe driving discount here. We're going to figure out what 20% of 24.28 is. You calculate that, it's $485.60. So subtracting that off, you get $1,942.40. You do have to pay tax on insurance, and tax for any typical product in BC is 12%. So you'll use 12% on your example as well. So 0.12 times 1942.40, and the tax ends up being $233.90 for a total of $2,175.49. Okay, so when you go to your insurance agency and you go to pay, you'll have two options. You can just pay all that up front in cash, or if you don't have $2,000, which a lot of people don't, they end up borrowing the money from ICBC. And ICBC actually gives you a pretty decent deal, much better than like a credit card or something like that, which usually has like 20% interest. So this is the amount we want to pay. ICBC gives you a 2.5% loan, and you can pay it monthly. You can also pay it semi-annually or quarterly as well, I believe. But here we'll just assume you're going to pay monthly because that's what most people choose. So the amount that we're going to be borrowing is $2,175.49. To calculate the monthly payment, because it is a regular payment, we're going to use that same equation we did in the car loan example, the present value equation, because the present value is known here. The present value is the amount we need to borrow. And our rate, so I'm just going to write this down, 1 minus 1 plus, so the rate that we're charged is 2.5% divided by 12, because it's, and we were making 12 payments total, so the N is 12. Okay, so just like before, I'm going to plug all this into my calculator. Okay, I'm going to just clear it off. Okay, so I'm going to do the numerator first. 1 minus 1 plus 0.025 divided by 12. Bracket, the power of negative 12. Press equals. That's just the numerator. I'll divide it by the denominator now. 0.025 divided by 12. I'll use brackets there, take note of that. Okay, so we get 11.839. So the present value is 2175.49. I don't know the R value, that's the regular payment amount that we're trying to find, but I do know this messy looking fraction here equals 11.8390676. Then we divide both sides by that number to isolate R. R equals, okay, let's use that number. We're not going to erase it. We're going to use the answer button here. 5.49, that's the amount we need to borrow, divided by answer. Okay, 183.76. 183.76. That's our monthly payment. So the total cost of the loan is going to be 12 of these payments. So 12, because there's 12 months in a year. You always buy your insurance. Well, most people buy it for the whole year. You can buy it for less amount of time, but it's more expensive. 12 times 183.76. $2,205.12. So that's the total cost of the loan. So you'll see it's a little bit more than the actual amount. So if you pay upfront in cash in a lump sum, it is better, but not by much. It's actually a pretty good loan rate. So a lot of people choose to pay monthly. The finance charge is just going to be the amount we ended up paying minus the actual cost of the insurance. And that is $29.57, which is pretty good. You only pay $30 extra to pay monthly payments. Okay, so that is that insurance example. Now you need to pause this video here and go through this practice example on your own, and then come back and look at example 3 with me. So once you've paid for your car and you've got your insurance, the other thing that's going to really cost you a lot of money is gas, fuel. So we looked up a bunch of different vehicles. These are kind of a variety of luxury and not luxury, different categories of cars, and looked at their mileage. And so you can see here when usually it's separated if you look it up online into city and highway. That's because in the city you end up using more gas because you're stopping and starting a lot more, and then on the highway you're consistently going at like a certain speed, so you end up using less gas. For your final project, you'll average these two numbers just to kind of simplify things a bit. But we're going to do an example here for, let's see, a BMW, and then you'll do another practice example here. Okay, so here we are looking for the BMW. And by the way, usually it's given in liters per 100 kilometers. So it tells you how many liters you'll need of gas if you travel 100 kilometers. And so we're using the BMW. Okay. So we're going to go split this up into city and highway. So in the city, we're doing 500 kilometers. We need 5 of these 11.9 liters. So we do 5 times 11.9 liters per 100 kilometers. So every time I drive 100 kilometers, I'll use up 11.9 liters. So I need 5 of those. So let's see, 5 times 11.9 is 59.5 liters of gas. On the highway, I'm going 1,200 kilometers. I'm going to multiply by 1,200 times the highway amount, 7.5 liters per 100 kilometers. And I get 90. So in total, I'm going to use 59.5 plus 90, 149.5 liters of gas. Okay, so you could like estimate how much like a road trip would cost, for example, using something like this. And then right now the gas is around $1.50. Sometimes it goes a little bit higher than that. So we're going to use this price, 1.59 per liter. So the cost of gas would be 1.59 per liter, and I know I'm using 149.5 liters of gas. So that's going to cost me $237.71 for my gas. Okay, so that's just a basic gas calculation. You can use this table or chart for the next practice. And also there's going to be a fuel consumption, like a little yearly budget example here as well. So like read the information, put this down, and then fill this chart out. So you need to pause the video here and then do those 2 tasks. Okay, so that is the end of the like practice examples. Now you're going to be just going through and doing the actual assignment or project. So this is where you're going to find your own car. There's a website here that you can use to find it. And then you're going to be going through all the same types of examples we just did, but for the car that you choose. And then, so everyone's calculations are going to be different depending on what car they choose. And then at the very end on the last page, it's kind of a summary of all the different costs and how much it's going to cost you per month and also per year. And also you'll calculate the daily cost of owning a car and talk about whether this amount surprises you or not. Is it more expensive than you thought or less expensive than you thought? Also, you'll do a little summary of the advantages of buying a new car over a used car, because you'll see some of those advantages, especially in the car maintenance section here. Okay, so I'm going to log off now. You should have enough for doing the project. Recording.